What a crazy day on social media. A lot of tension out there in the world, man. It is getting nuts, bro. I don't know, man. Some of this has been pissing me off, bro. It's like this war going on right now in the Democratic Party that, I mean, it's best for that war to be happening now, I suppose, than in October. But this fucking election is toxic, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any less toxic as we get closer to election day. A lot of it centers around the sentiment around these college protests. Like, there's a ton of misinformation, obviously, being a human being that cares about human beings. There's nothing about me that would be considered pro-genocide. Not when America did it to the Native Americans. Not when America did a, spiritual genocide to black people during slavery. You know what I'm saying? Certainly not in the Middle East, where there's no doubt that Palestinians have been caged in and the Israeli government has run amok on them for decades. There is no doubt. And yet, something that's really irritating me that I don't know how to wrap my head around is seeing people arguing on social media as though this election is like a pro-genocide, no genocide choice. You know, if you really want to call it out, it's like genocide on both sides of the coin. There's not a non-genocide option right now in American government that I see. There's a handful of Democratic voices that are crying out about this now and saying Joe Biden's throwing the election. And I don't see how that's possible. Like, I don't think Joe Biden has changed his tune. Everybody knows where he stood on policing and shit. And certainly what's going on in New York City, those cops beating the shit out of people. I don't think Eric Adams and NYPD's behavior necessarily is about Joe Biden. I mean, I personally have problems with Joe Biden and have always had problems with him for being pro-police. I mean, but that, to me, that's government in general. I haven't been able to get around that with most of my party because the idea of reforming policing gets met in the Democratic Party as though you're crazy for suggesting such a thing. Here's the problem, though. I've been seeing a lot of tweets today with people like this guy, David Austin Walsh. I'm not super familiar with this guy. I mean, he wrote a book about conservative movement in the far right that apparently just came out, but he posts this thing. It's this tweet right here where he says, I was going to vote for Biden in November for labor and also obviously to keep Trump out of office. But after tonight, man, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this stuff right here. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, what is this guy expecting here? You know what I mean? This guy lives in Virginia, by the way, which is not a guaranteed state for Joe Biden. But I saw another woman. Essentially, she's not voting for Biden and that she's willing to give up her rights just to watch it all burn. I'm really confused about what's going on right now because this guy right here, David Austin Walsh, saying he's thinking maybe he's not going to vote for Biden in November. But what I wonder is, what do they think is going to happen in November if he doesn't vote for Biden? Let's presume this guy he can't do it. In good conscience, he has felt like Biden has just done too much. Hasn't spoken out enough, hasn't defended the student protesters enough. I mean, I don't know what he expects. Does he expect Biden to send the National Guard in there to, like, attack the NYPD? I mean, Eric Adams is being Eric Adams. I believe Eric Adams is an ex-cop, isn't he? Yeah, he was an officer in NYPD, bro. He was a cop for 20 years, Eric Adams, in New York City. So what the hell else is Eric Adams going to do but send in the pigs? You know what I'm saying? He's a pig. That's what he's going to do. If you're offended by me calling cops pigs, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I don't like police. The police, the agents of the state. I'm not a huge fan. But I'm really flummoxed about what's going on here because seeing the students protesting about what's going on in Palestine, I absolutely support the students. I do. I support them protesting. The war that's going on over there in Israel is overkill, more than overkill. I also firmly believe that the IDF has wanted to do that, that it's not like an accidental thing. thing that the IDF is specifically, they love demolishing Palestinian territory. And in a twisted way, I'm probably pretty accurate to say that Hamas doesn't mind the IDF's overreaction because it allows them to continue their war. Like, those two power units are warring. Man, I don't know, dude. I'm just kind of torn up seeing people say that. Like, I think some of these people, they want Biden to go in there and go into Heinz Hall. But like, you have to be out of your fucking mind, okay? I voted for Biden in 2020. I voted for Biden in 2020 because he was not Trump. But there's no way in hell that I thought in 2020 that Joe Biden was going to be a defund the police, support the Palestinian protesters kind of guy. He ain't it. The number of people we have in government that are even that is like a tiny percentage. And so people like acting surprised that Joe Biden, a devout Catholic old school politician, to act like they're surprised that he's an Israel supporter. Come on. I don't know, man. It's just super frustrating seeing people, you know, I feel like I'm seeing the Bernie bros all over again. You know what I'm saying? And no, I'm not blaming the 2016 election on the Bernie bros, okay? I'm not. You know, Hillary certainly could have, like, picked Bernie as a VP, and that campaign could have worked out differently, or she could have not listened to the polls and campaigned a little harder. But I really feel like we're in this situation where even people on the right side of history seem like they're willing to let Trump in office to show Joe Biden. And I don't understand where that gets us. Like, what is this election about here in America? Because at the end of the day, we have to live here in this country. And this country is going to be radically different depending on who we vote for in November, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a person of color or a woman of color. There's people like this where what does he think is going to happen? Is he blaming the Columbia NYPD, a former cop, Eric Adams, taking a fucking crane into this building and these cops showing up in ridiculous numbers, by the way? Dude, fuck off, you piece of shit. Get out of here. Dude, that guy's looking at a blank screen right now. Dude, he's basically looking at the inside of his own head. I don't know, man. I'm kind of pissed off at this shit. I feel like there is an unrealistic look at where the American government is right now. If you look at Congress right now, these are the people that make the laws. Let's take the president out of the equation. There's almost no one in Congress that would go and stand with those protesters. Almost no one. Almost no one. That's literally where the U.S. government is. Us thinking that the U.S. government is in any way concerned about a genocide anywhere in the world. Like, when have we ever? How do you think we got this land? I don't know. Do you own property in America? I own a house in America. I own a house in an area that was literally all the land was taken from Native Americans. Okay. And the Native Americans have a legacy of alcoholism. They're trapped on reservations. They've never been the same since we came here and decimated them and devastated them. Now, mind you, I'm not letting Joe Biden off the hook here, okay? Because I think this is bigger than Joe Biden. I think this is an American thing. America is a genocidal nation, and we always have been. And now, granted, we can do something about that, but we're not going to be able to do something about that by making sure that the most genocidal and the most racist and the most misogynist and the most anti-human rights motherfucker on the planet ends up being president. Trump becoming president is not going to fix any of these problems. And in fact, it's going to create far greater problems at home. Pissed off, maybe not even so much at people like David Austin Walsh. I'm kind of pissed off that our country is such a fucking piece of shit right now that the only two choices we have are a sexual abusing, knocking piece of criminal like Donald Trump, or a 80-year-old man who still wants to govern like it's, 1975 in Joe Biden. I'm angry. I'm angry that that's our choice. Do I think these protests help Trump politically? No. Well, so here's the deal. The people who are protesting here aren't going to go vote for Trump. I think what's happening is they're causing left-wing politics, having their enthusiasm crushed. See, here's the deal. I personally think that a lot of these overreactions to the student protests where they send in the cops, especially when you look at Georgia and Texas, I think they want to overreact and they want to make it look like shit is out of control so they can fuel that narrative of like Biden has lost control of the country, right? I think the right-wing media wants it to look like the country is burning down and everything's falling apart, so they can all blame it on Biden. I mean, there's a lot going on right now, okay? Because people are rightfully pissed at American genocidal behavior. People are rightfully pissed. But here's the problem I have. All of a sudden, having this genocidal American revelation show up in the middle of an election year where maybe you're going to sink the country and put Trump in office because now, for the first time in your life, you came to realize that America is a genocidal military machine and they support other genocidal military machines. And you're having this awakening. I think the time to have this awakening and start the battle is November 10th. Okay. Let's win this election. Let's kick Trump and the far right to the curb. I mean, because if you look at Israel, the IDF, that is a far right government. Okay? That is a far right government. Genocide and the complete wiping out of people you disagree with, that is a far right mentality. Okay? That is an imperialist, colonialist, far right, nationalist sort of mentality. Okay? Period. All right? There is no liberal doctrine that is about genocide if you just look at political philosophies. So we don't want a far right government in America. Man, it's like, this is just really hard for me because this guy, I don't know what he's acting like. He's acting like America wasn't a genocide supporting nation before Biden got in office. But like, dude, our country was literally founded on genocidal tendencies. That's the very core of the American equation, man. I honestly don't know what the solution is. I get that people are mad. Like I think so many people are upset at what's going on in Gaza. But I think many of us are just at a loss here. Jewel, you're not wrong. Biden's chances of getting reelected are not certain at all. And I don't know how Trump is still in this race. You know what I'm saying? It's just really weird because nobody wants to hold Trump responsible for how he mangled the COVID response or how he fucked up the beginning of the pandemic and left a near recession for Biden to clean up. Right? But like the media seems to be holding a lot of water. You know, if you look at that Time magazine, if you look at the Time magazine Trump article, this article, like, look at this paragraph here. This paragraph is so alarming. What emerged in 2 interviews with Trump and conversations with more than a dozen of his closest advisors and confidants were the outlines of an imperial presidency that would reshape America and its role in the world. To carry out a deportation operation designed to remove more than 11 million people from the country, Trump told me he would be willing to build migrant detention camps and deploy the U.S. military both at the border and inland. He would let red states monitor women's pregnancies and prosecute those who violate abortion bans. He would, at his personal discretion, withhold funds appropriated by Congress. That's the impoundment shit that Nixon tried to use. He would be willing to fire a U.S. attorney who doesn't carry out his order to prosecute someone, breaking with the tradition of independent law enforcement that dates from America's founding. He is weighing pardons for every one of his supporters accused of attacking the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, more than 800 of whom have pleaded guilty or been convicted by a jury. He might not come to the aid of an attacked ally in Europe or Asia if he felt that country wasn't paying enough for its own defense. He would gut the U.S. civil service. That's the Schedule F, where he wants to fire everybody, fight government employees as possible, and replace them with people from the presidential database from Project 2025. Okay, deploy the National Guard to American cities as he sees fit, close the White House Pandemic Preparedness Office, and staff his administration with acolytes who back his false assertion that the 2020 election was stolen. Now, independent of all the pain and suffering that is going on over in Gaza, we have like all of this hanging over our head here in America, right here in the U.S., in addition to the fact that all of this shit that Trump wants to pull off, that most certainly Israel would have carte blanche to just demolish whatever they want to over in both the West Bank and in Gaza. And in fact, Trump and Jared Kushner would probably have some hotels on the coast there in Gaza on top of it all. So I just feel like there's so much at stake in America, in our actual country here. Like, why is the conscience for America's genocidal tendencies coming to a head during this election? That's really what I want to know. And I'm not defending the American genocidal tendencies. I think it's horrible, dude. I think our country, the foundations of our entire country are flawed. They're dirty. It's about mass killings of native peoples, buffalo, right? The planet, the ecology of the US with the over farming of corn and shit. The way you've just been like destroying the land, destroying the planet, really, with industry upon industry. Go to Texas and look what the cattle farms, industrial cattle farming's doing to the environment down there. Okay, we've been wreaking havoc with that genocidal, destroy everything for our own personal gain since the beginning, the foundation of this country. It's like fused in the roots of every one of us here in our economy and everything. So why is it now that all of a sudden that entire impulse is somehow falling on Joe Biden's shoulders? That's what I don't have the answer to. At a time when we are, at war, right, within our own country with a philosophy that wants to, let's look at this. Let's look at what some of this could look like. Like here, the deportation operation. So what is that going to be? That's going to be a bunch of Trump hit squads where every Hispanic person in America is unsafe. Hispanic people are going to what? What are they going to wear? Armbands that prove they're citizens or some shit? What's it going to be like to be Hispanic in America when Trump's hit squad rolls up? Show me your papers or you go off to the detention camp, right? You can't find your papers. You don't get them in time. You're off to the detention camp. What is that going to look like? How much is that going to cost? Who's paying for that? Who's paying for this collection and camp? You know what I mean? Who's there? I've seen these right wingers asking who's buying the protesters' tents. Who the fuck is going to pay to round up and deport 11 million people? How long would that even take? If you do 1,000 a day, dude, it would take you 30 years to do 11 million people. You know what I'm saying? What does that even look like? What is that? That's insane, right? Migrant detention camps? I'm really flummoxed why this is coming to a head right now. And there's this other guy, Peter Dow, this. Trump, I will implement Project 2025, deport 11 million immigrants, and gut every agency. And then Biden, hold my beer. I don't even understand that. The fuck is that? Biden hasn't changed any policy. Biden is operating the same U.S. Israel policy that every leader in this country has honored. Like, hello, the government of America is filled with crazy Christian motherfuckers. And I mean, this guy, what did he say earlier today? He said something here. He's saying you were watching Joe Biden lose the 2024 election in real time, and he's congratulating the Democrats. But I don't get what he does. Nobody's abusing Christians, boss. Go f*** yourself. Later. Get clown kicked. If you call getting kicked out of the chat abuse, then eat it. Eat a bowl, fuck nuts. Dude, quit crying. You ain't oppressed. But so here, wait, let me find this tweet. He says something about Joe Biden needs to lose, is what he said. That was the tweet I saw from him. Right here. This guy, Joe Biden must lose, he says. There is no moral universe in which Biden's genocide can get rewarded with re-election. If that means Trump wins, then we vigorously oppose Trump too. The moral choice in 2024 is to vote third party to defeat both Biden and Trump. What the f*** is this guy talking about? If that means Trump wins, then we vigorously oppose Trump too. Like, what world is this guy living in? What does he think is going to happen in a Trump second term? There's no breaks in the second term of any president. That's what the second term is. You can't run for a third one. They can't get you out. So whatever your agenda is as a U.S. president, the second term is when the brakes come off. Does he think that if Trump was president right now, that, you know, the NYPD would be singing Kumbaya with those protesters? Like, what the f*** is this guy even saying, bro? I mean, I get it. He's upset about what's going on in Gaza. I'm upset about what's going on in Gaza. We should all be upset about what's going on in Gaza. But to think, though, that Joe Biden is somehow capable of single-handedly reversing 75 years of American policy when it comes to conflict in Israel is pretty laughable, man. But he wants to burn it down. Does he actually think that there's a realistic situation where Biden and Trump are going to lose to a third party? And even if a third party did win, you think U.S. foreign policy in Israel would change? Fucking Ronald McDonald could win the presidency and Congress would still be Congress. The U.S. policy in the Middle East would still be the U.S. policy in the Middle East. This shit is fucking pissing me off, bro.